Fiercely debated the President's State of the Nation address, as you just heard, but what are the key arguments? Let's unpack it with political analyst Ivor Sorokinski. Thanks for your time, sir. Appreciate it. We heard from many opposition parties. We also heard from ANC MPs defending the President. I want to take a listen to Naledi Pandor and what she had to say late last night before we discuss what happened.
As to the Honourable Lekota, well, he spoke and then left. As is usual, and I sadly have to say I found his contribution rather embarrassing. I couldn't understand how a leader in the struggle who had suffered imprisonment and other strictures and who understands the mispossession that was practiced and dispossession among the people of our country, a person who would have that at his root, as his rooted political education, should understand we have nothing but an obligation to ensure that we repair that history. So I found his comments most amazing.
All right, so the land issue there being one of the contentious issues in the SONA debate. Do you think enough was said on the issue to actually push the ANC into the direction that the opposition parties want them to go, or they already know what they're doing in this regard?
I don't think anyone knows what they really want on the land issue, apart from the slogans of land restitution or expropriation without compensation. Those are slogans. The real mechanics of achieving those goals in terms of getting an equitable redistribution of land, which very few would disagree with, is very complicated, very technical, very legal, with massive financial implications, and the food security issues shouldn't be ignored. Many farms that have been returned to the traditional owners of that land are now not productive, especially in Mpumalanga, and that's very concerning. Imagine if we had to start to import food instead of producing it internally. So these are the general concerns that need to be addressed in a detailed program where all the parties get into the micro-devil detail and spell out exactly how this is going to work so we don't end up with a really bad policy framework.
Well, the detail is what's important, because the EFF said it wasn't convinced that Ramaphosa adequately laid out plans on how to safeguard the country's resources. Let's listen to that.
When you reform state-owned companies, we should discontinue a phenomenon that single ministries are in charge of the whole state-owned company. You cannot have the Department of Public Enterprises as a single shareholder of Eskom. There should be other role players, DBSA, IDC, PIC, so that accountability mechanisms are handled better in that level. The third proposal that we want you to look into, because you never told us what is to be done. Deal now clearly with tax avoidance. We have been crying on this for the longest time. SARS has got the necessary technical capacity to deal with tax avoidance. Legislate clearly on what we do with the billions of rands that are being lost to creative accounting practices of almost all the multinational companies that exist in South Africa.
Of course they want more detail, but can the President actually provide so much detail in the State of the Nation address?
No, the State of the Nation is a general outline of where the leadership wants to go in the forthcoming year. The detail is in the budget, and that's coming tomorrow afternoon.
So opposition parties are pushing for Cyril Ramaphosa to fire certain ministers, replace them, push through with this cabinet reshuffle. This morning, he said that he needed time to reflect.
I think he's got a clear sense of what he wants to do. The State of the Nation said shrink the size of the cabinet, and that is a polite diplomatic way of saying that there are going to be dramatic changes. So already there must be some discussion of how that complicated bureaucratic octopus is going to be condensed into a more manageable size with fewer ministers and deputy ministers. So I think that there are blueprints already in place, and he's just not going to say anything until he's ready to announce it, which will be after the budget.
Well, since he's not saying anything, There's lots of talk about who the front runners are for these positions. I've still heard Pravin Gordhan's name. I've heard Lindiwe Sisulu, Naledi Pandor for Deputy President. What do you think?
Lindiwe Sisulu was possibly a front runner up until her speech yesterday in Parliament. I think that speech has damaged her chances quite a bit. And then you saw Naledi Pandor, very articulate, very eloquent, very conciliatory, engaging Parliament thereafter. So I think the balance has tilted away from Lindiwe Sisulu on that one. The others are very difficult to speculate on. Is Pravin Gordhan going to come back? Does he want it? Is he well enough to do it? Hasn't he had enough? If he does come in, would it be for a short-term fixed task, like to clean up public enterprises? The big one is the Minister of Finance. Is Gigaba going to hold his post, or are they going to bring in someone with a little bit more stature and experience in financial affairs?
Now, overall, we saw a very different parliament. We saw a more courteous parliament. People were respectful most of the time. We saw some contention. And the DA said that it didn't want parliament to return to when President Jacob Zuma was there. So let's listen to that.
We as Parliament must introspect very honestly and very carefully about how we fix our Parliament and address its failings over the last 8 years to effect oversight. We must firewall this Parliament and our institutions to protect them from this ever happening again. In this blush of new dawn, we mustn't be lulled into complacency or hypnotized and charmed into naivety. You're very charming, the ladies tell me. We must learn the hard lessons from Zuma years and ensure that we hold President Ramaphosa accountable. It is the very best service that we can do for our people, and it's the very best service we can do for you and your government. If we do not learn from the mistakes of the past, we will condemn to repeat them.
We're sort of in the honeymoon phase right now. Is it going to last, though?
It's just a question of time in terms of when the honeymoon ends, either shorter, sooner or later. The pressures out there and the need for urgent responses are pressing. And the complexity and the difficulties and the stakeholders mean that there aren't going to be quick solutions. And the more it drags on and the more there isn't decisive action on pertinent issues, the more the credibility, the more the momentum of this new dawn starts to wane. So it's a very difficult balancing act that President Ramaphosa has found himself in. He's made massive promises in the State of Nation address, and to deliver on those promises is going to require an incredible restructuring of public services and institutions in order to process those issues and come up with solutions and then implement those solutions in a credible, effective way. A huge task ahead.
He's already on the campaign trail if you look at what he's doing in terms of winning public support. I mean, is that enough, though, especially since he has to balance and draw that fine line to make so many people happy within his party and outside?
Yes. He's treading fine lines at a whole range of levels. And it might just be that the focus over the next 18 months is more on the political campaign issues as opposed to the hard restructuring, bureaucratic resource management issues in terms of delivering. And then with a new mandate, should the ANC win in 2019, then to roll out and implement policy relentlessly. So there's going to be some serious trade-offs in terms of dealing with the issues now, being unpopular, and the budget tomorrow is going to be a very unpopular budget, making tough other policy issues to resolve the issues identified, or whether to just play politics until 2019. Those will be the trade-offs that his cabinet and he himself will have to make in the run-up to this very important watershed 2019 election.
All right, thanks so much for your insight. We do appreciate it. That was political analyst Ivor Sarakinsky. We're going to take a break. We're back in a moment with more. This is The Lead. Stay with us.